I'm recording this in my garage and it is freezing cold in here and I'm wearing no sleeves because I'm an idiot. Picture this, it's New Year 2008 and you... How old am I? It's New Year 2008 and you are 11 years old. It's time for the yearly school play and this year we're doing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Except instead of dwarves, they're jockeys, and it's actually a heist movie about stealing the magic mirror from the evil queen because they want to use it to predict horse racing results so they can all become millionaires. I don't know. But because the previous year was the year that Britain's Got Talent came out, instead of students being chosen to play roles because they wanted to, or maybe because of their acting talent, we all had to do this stupid audition thing where we all had to sing and dance and display some talent in front of the rest of the school. And because I didn't give a shit, I ended up being given a role of a lord who appears in the first scene, says one line, and sits backstage for a few hours. So really, I actually got the best role in the whole play. Something weird happened during this whole thing. Every single girl who applied danced to the exact same song. Apple bottom jean boots with the fire. Yes, little did my prepubescent brain understand, but this was in fact my first exposure to a little phenomenon called club music, which, unbeknownst to me, had been sweeping the nation for the past, 5 years. Club music was a subgenre of electronic music that was designed primarily to be played in the club. I know, big surprise. That was the sound of mainstream pop music from around 2003 to 2013-ish, depending who you ask. It had the general aim of combining the repetitive, glamorous style of 90s electronic dance music with a little bit of popular song structure and song style and maybe a little bit of a popular aesthetic, smack in a little sprinkle of southern hip-hop that was blowing up in America around the time, and you've got a recipe for 10 years of pop music domination. I'm not going to spend this video trying to explain to you that club music has aged amazingly well, because trust me, a lot of it hasn't. There are only so many times that you can hear Flo Rida rhyme bottles with models without losing your mind. There's supposed to be a but here, but I don't really have a good reason for doing this. I just know a lot about club music for some reason. The story of club music is a story with 3 parts. The first part being the part where lots of new music comes out. Technically, the first club song to become a real smash hit in the mainstream was In Da Club by your boy Curtis Jackson III, known to us real OGs as 50 Cent. But if you asked any major music historian if there was just one song that started the club music boom, they would probably say, yeah.
Peace up, A-Town down. Yeah!
It is hard to truly quantify how much Yeah by Usher changed the pop culture landscape with nothing but an 8-note synth lead. Before Yeah, mainstream pop music was a lot of sludgy Nickelback dad rock and airy Kelly Clarkson mom pop that has also aged pretty badly. But afterwards, acts who would have been left in the dust, dead on arrival in 2001, suddenly became just the biggest artists in the mainstream. Rihanna, the Black Eyed Peas, Kesha, Pitbull, T-Pain, Pitbull, Lady Gaga, Pitbull. Did I mention Pitbull yet? Because there were a lot of Pitbull verses at the time. And I don't want to give you the impression that club music was the only popular music throughout the previously allotted time slot, because it really wasn't. This piece of absolute dog shit still went to number 1 in 2006, but they were the exception because they lacked a Pitbull feature. Yeah itself is just an absolute classic. The synths sound great even to this day. Usher has the voice of an angel. I want Little John to read me bedtime stories. And at one point in the track, Ludacris says this,
Ludacris fill cups like Double D,
which makes me imagine Ludacris with a pair of big old titties, and I find that thought hilarious. As much as he started the whole thing, Usher didn't turn into a major player throughout club music's run. He released singles throughout the whole thing, and most of them did pretty well. But apart from Yeah, his only other major contribution was DJ Got Us Falling in Love in 2010, featuring Pitbull. See, I told you he'd be back. That song isn't quite as good as Yeah, but without it we'd have never got the Minecraft parody, so we'd have never got the Minecraft parody of Coldplay's Viva La Vida, and without that, 15-year-old me never really would have felt emotions. For the few years immediately following the release of Yeah, we saw a lot of music from new artists become popular that were generally getting a feel for where the boundaries of the genre lie. But of all the artists to release songs in this time, my favourite of this first period actually came from Madonna. Hung Up is like a really hot hatchback car. Doesn't look like much on the outside, but once you get behind the wheel, you just feel it. Also, I really want Madonna to step on my face. Of all the years in this period, 2007 specifically I want to hone in on, because it gave us two very interesting songs. Everyone's first crush Avril Lavigne got in on the wave, attempting to combine club music with rock music thanks to the song Girlfriend, which I guess technically worked because it actually became the first ever YouTube video to break 100 million views. The other interesting song from 2007 was Crank Dat by Souljaboy, which is an alright song in retrospect, but I know all the dance moves to that because of a stupid summer camp I was sent to back in 2008. Thanks Mum and Dad, that is now part of my brain permanently dedicated to knowing how to crank that. These two songs specifically are worth singling out because they were the first two songs to really use social media in order to get a foothold in the mainstream. Avril was already famous, but Souljaboy was a complete nobody who blew up on MySpace and YouTube. And knowing how much that being a viral hit matters in this modern music climate, club music was kind of ahead of the game, knowing that by being really annoying and really memey respectively, you could actually do pretty well for yourself. The short of it is, without Avril Lavigne, we'd have never got Gangnam Style. So you know what? Thank you, Avril Lavigne. So a few years pass, Sean Paul blesses the world with Temprature. Banger! We reach the second part of club music's arc. The part where depth happens. Just dance, gonna be okay. Da da do do, just dance, a record bay. It is kind of hard to oversell how much of like a thing Lady Gaga was. As time has gone on, this era of Lady Gaga's career has kind of been overshadowed by the Lovecraftian horrors that she used to wear when she presented herself in public, and there was definitely an element of that aforementioned social media hype, but the music Lady Gaga released on her first album, The Fame, is legitimately some of the most essential music that came out in the 2000s. Regardless of genre, you like music, you really should listen to songs like Just Dance and Poker Face, because they showed that club music did have potential to be artsy. Lady Gaga coupled the club music aesthetic with a desperate, stardom-hungry image that commented on how we kind of destroy our own personal image in order to become a social image. There was also Kadollah who did a similar thing by creating this party girl aesthetic that she was commenting on and trusted the audience to understand that this whole thing was a character that you were supposed to analyse and was not a legitimate person. Like seriously, if you ever want a good old cringe, go back in the history books and look up the response to Kesha when she first came out, because Jesus Christ, do you not understand, people, that nobody is actually like this and can make music like this? How have you not put that together? You're not supposed to like Kesha as a character. You should probably like her music. It's really good. I mean, the video for Take It Off literally ends with Kesha disintegrating into a cloud of glitter, portraying how hollow this whole lifestyle is. Why are you acting like she's something you're supposed to aspire to? I actually got a little bit actually angry about that. Take It Off is a really good song. Then it all came tumbling down. I wish there was a story as neat as another song came out and changed the landscape, but I don't think anything explicitly killed club music. However, I do have one theory as to why 7 years was about how long it took to start dying. If you remember back to my story at the start of the video, yes, there was relevance to that. We were only 11 and 12 years old during that audition. At its peak, this stuff primarily appealed not to people old enough to go to the club, but to teenagers who wanted to feel old enough to go to the club. Assuming you were 14 in 2003 when 50 Cent released that first single, and let's face it, you probably were if you were listening to 50 Cent. That means by 2010 you're 21 years old. You're old enough to get into the club and realise that it's a hot, small room full of people you don't like, with music you don't like, and you're having to babysit your friend who has just spent £75 on tequila shots and is now in the corner trying to convince some girl that he's related to Daniel Radcliffe because they're both ginger, and Daniel Radcliffe is not ginger, and I'm not going to name any names, but god damn it, Jack. It did give that audience the context they needed to maybe start branching out and listening to some other things. That might be what killed club music. It also might be because, as well as Lady Gaga, Kesha, all that good stuff, 2010 also gave us Like a G6 by the Far East Movement, which, my god, is absolutely unbearably terrible. Like, some songs have aged badly in like a funny way where you can look back and go, haha, we used to like this. But everything terrible about club music is kind of encapsulated in this one song, and it was like the 6th biggest song to come out that year, and it really is a miracle that anyone in 2010 who had ears still has them. But as the sands shifted beneath them, the artist kept going. Kesha released more singles, Black Eyed Peas, Pitbull, Enrique Iglesias all kept going, and Rihanna managed to release her first ever OK song. Good job, Rihanna, it only took you 7 years. And Nicki Minaj debuts, who starts off pretty weak, gets some pretty good songs towards the end of 2011, then kind of falls off a little bit. Then Nicki Minaj is like a real roller coaster. But this year is very, very important, because it's the year that 2 dudes dressed like I did when I was 16. God, editing me, put up a picture of this so we can all laugh at it. But these 2 dudes were about to release what at the time was thought to be just another generic club song, but would in fact change everything.
Party rock is in the house tonight. Everybody just have a good time.
Okay, so to explain what Party Rock Anthem changed, we need to go into a little bit of basic music theory. Most songs have verses and choruses and maybe a bridge, which at the time was probably a Pitbull feature. Party Rock Anthem has verses, has a chorus, and, goddammit, even has a bridge. But it also has this.
Every day I'm shuffling.
LMFAO, deliberately or not, had just introduced mainstream music to The Drop. The Drop fundamentally changes how music works to a point where the music no longer really resembled club music. Club music was still seeped in the 90s aesthetic, where a song was about deliberately looping elements. The Drop deliberately loses a good chunk of its elements to create a dramatic effect. What we've got here isn't club music. What we've got is EDM, electronic dance music. I know what you're about to ask. Isn't club music electronic music that you're supposed to dance to? What makes this not EDM and this EDM? And that is a very good question. I don't know, genres just kind of have stupid names. The final few years from 2011 to 2013, club music was generally in a losing battle with EDM, as the fans of the music went from the dance floor to the festival. So they went from a nice clean floor to a big brown field, presumably full of crap. I've never been to a festival, I'm sorry. It wasn't helped by the fact that 2012 was around the time that Kesha sort of fell off before that whole unfortunate story came out a few years ago. Katy Perry, who I don't think I've actually mentioned yet, kind of fell off around this time too. Gaga sort of went off to go make like avant-garde folk music that is really bad, which left us with dudes like Neo manning the ship. And like, Neo's not that bad, but if the captain of your ship is this dude wearing a stupid fedora and grey suit, forgive me if during the night I sneak out of the quarters, get on a paddle boat and go row to the place where all the Swedish people are. While it wasn't the very first EDM hit, I think the song that was the equivalent of Yeah to this new era of music is probably Wake Me Up by Avicii, and I feel like explaining why Wake Me Up is a fantastic song is kind of a fool's game. I mean, you've got ears, listen to this. It's great. To be honest, I've tried to be fair throughout this whole video and view songs in the most objective light I can, but I just can't do that to Wake Me Up. So much of who I am as a person is bound to this song. If I tried to detach myself from it, I think I'd just go crazy. And after the release of Wake Me Up, club music was pretty much out of the picture. The very last song that you could reasonably call club music to become popular came out on October 6th, 2013 and went to number 1 in the December of the same year. And who else could it be but by my man, Mr. 305 Pitbull, yes!
The bigger they are, the harder they fall. This bigger than boys are digging it down.
I kicked off my slippers while doing that. A fitting song to pass the torch to a new era of music. Timber is fantastic, giving Kesha her last song before she vanished was great, and the world was too cruel to Pitbull. Talking about music beyond that is beyond the scope of this video, because this is a club music video and EDM is a whole nother thing, but for now this book is closed. I feel like this is the point in the video where I should come to some conclusion about what talking about the history of club music means, and I spent like an hour trying to come up with something, but to be honest, I just know a lot about club music.